right, fans, welcome to this week's edition of Sports Chat. Several things going on. Biggest news is Campbell County has a new girls basketball coach.
Yeah, Coach Brad Honeycutt comes up, I think, from Grace Christian Academy, local guy. Brother Chris, or probably cousin Chris, is the head coach at Lafayette Middle School.
He had a brother named Travis that also played basketball at Campbell County.
So it's good to see him coming home from Grace Christian Academy. Ryan Browning be missed, left some big shoes to fill. Campbell County's losing some pretty quality senior players this year. Jamie Minot, Hannah Owens, Whitney Sawyer, and a few others. I think Chelsea Finkenbein's also a senior.
Chelsea Finkenbein and Megan Caudill.
So he's got a rebuilding process. But, you know, every few years you've got to rebuild in high school.
And you know, there's still some quality players there.
Coach
Kendra King is really good.
Coach Browning did a good job of player development over the years.
In fact, Kendra had a really good AAU weekend from what I understood.
They'll be fine under Coach Honeycutt. Get him back up here, get him teaching in the system again. I have a lot of faith in him that he'll put an exciting product out on the field.
Yeah, listen, he's a good coach. And he's been at Grace Christian for a while. They've got a pretty strong athletic program.
Oh yeah, the Grace Christian doesn't hire anybody but the most quality of coaches and teachers.
In fact, it's very odd to even have a younger coach there because part of their policy is to go find coaches that are retiring out of this. You know, they'll get their state pension. They can still teach at Grace because it's private. And they built an incredible athletic program that way.
No, they have a lot of veteran coaches over there for doing that, but that tells you something about Honeycutt's coaching ability. I know Chris is a very hard worker, great guy. Brad, I would suspect you'll get the same qualities out of him.
Oh, definitely. Other big news, postseason is basically upon us. The Cougars, I think, were scheduled to play at Powell today, but that game's looking like it won't happen until later this week simply because of the massive amount of rain. Even though it's beautiful outside right now.
Yeah, beautiful outside. There is a tornado watch right now. There's random thunderstorms rolling about East Tennessee. They may be able to play and may be able to get in. Last I looked at the radar, it was clear in Knoxville. But it's one of those days, you know, if you'll be seeing this and remember this, the storms pop up at random. Apparently a big one just rolled through Jellicoe and destroyed a good portion of it.
You know, more so than life has.
That's rough on the other side of the mountain.
Of course, this last Friday we went to the Dale Leg Invitational. That's always a fun track meet. You get to see the best of the best locally.
You have to be invited to participate in it. It's usually really the best in the area who compete. Then they have the exciting big man race at the Dale Leg each year. Basically the throwers race. It's the more muscly field event people
that you normally would never see actually on the
who
track.
don't do the run. They have it. Josh Leslie won for Campbell County.
Well, Josh is a pretty good athlete. He had some injuries that pretty much ended his football career early, but he stuck with track pretty good and has had a good career doing it.
Yeah, did a good job throwing in his throwing events on Friday, and so they won that race. That was nice. Rachel Nelson, from what I could tell, won the 100-meter hurdle.
She did.
She won her heat, which was the fast heat, and I'm pretty
she
sure
won
overall.
the entire thing overall.
Rachel, I watched her from a freshman year come up, and she's really gotten just really outstanding at most of her events. She's a good high jumper. She's good with the speed events.
Good hurdler.
Good hurdler. You know, good cheerleader. She's a very good overall all-around athlete, and she does well with everything she does. I mean, she's got a little bit of a handicap from her crazed uncle, but
we still love her.
Yeah.
Of course, freshman phenom Bryce Dossett had a good day.
Yeah, Bryce was participating in quite a few events. She, I believe, finished second in her 100-meter dash race, maybe third. Good showing for a freshman. 4x200. Yeah, the 4x200. It was Bryce, Rachel, and who were the other girls in it? Yes, I can't remember. Campbell County won by a wide margin in that 4x200 on the girls' side. I mean, They were just tearing it up.
Bryce was the anchor leg of that race, and they actually dominated that race and had 2 bad handoffs.
Yeah, there was a bad handoff on my side. I was on the other side of the track.
There was a bad handoff on my side on the other end.
Bryce got out to a bit of a fast start. And had to slow up a little bit to get the baton, but still, Campbell County had somewhat of a lead, and Bryce turned it on. And it was just she was gone. I say a good 20, 25 yard probably looked like a victory to me from the other side of the track.
Of course, Gracie Faulkner participated, and she's running injured right now.
Yeah, we talked to Gracie's mom, and Gracie has a bit of a possible stress fracture in her foot. So it's enough to make your foot feel sore when that happens, if anybody's ever had one before. And it's not an uncommon thing to happen to runners.
But for a runner, it's as bad a pain as you can feel without actually having a severe tear.
It does. Every time your foot hits the ground, it's going to be a sharp shooting pain. But she troopered on through and ran the 1600.
And they added a new thing this year. The day before, that had the last week they had the middle school sectionals up here, and then the day before the Del Leg they had the middle school meet, the regional meet, and they invited any kid that won a race to participate in an event called the Fastest Kid in Anderson County. Well, Grace's little brother Riley won that one.
He was the fastest kid in Anderson County that day. Of course, they live here in Campbell County, and hope to see him heading through the track system like all the traditional Faulkners.
I did see their grandfather there, Big Jack. He was repping his uncle's side that day.
He often does.
If he'd had a Tupperware container, he'd have been signing autographs.
Baseball, I think they're about ready to start the playoffs. Possibly already started them. I'm not completely sure.
It would start today, but I don't know how bad
right,
Knoxville got it.
Girls
Softball, same thing.
I'm not sure where they're being held at right now. Football, they're doing all-in drills right now. Pretty sure it's voluntary, but getting extremely good participation from what I've been able to see. Coach Price is excited with the participation. Official spring practice will probably begin, if I were guessing, around sometime between May the 1st and May the 10th.
Right.
Maybe more on towards May the 10th. I think spring practice lasts around 2 weeks, and the spring game is usually right at graduation. This past year, the spring game was the day before graduation, I believe.
Speaking of spring games,
Graduation.
Jacksboro Middle School started their spring practice today. Now, in a sort of non-traditional move, they're having their blue and gold game Friday. And then they're going to have a scrimmage with another team being spring practice. So Friday at 1:30 will be the blue and gold game at Jacksboro Middle School. And that's always a fun game to watch.
Yeah, that's surprising that they're shake it up, get a new outlook on things, and get another team that's willing to scrimmage against you. It's not a bad plan.
And not sure what the fall spring practice schedule is right now. They usually are a little bit more in line to start at the same time the high school does. Of course, soccer is not going to have a postseason in the same way that a lot of the other sports do this year because of the way it's set up.
Yeah, it's just the TSSAA rules we've spoken about before. You're not allowed to participate in the postseason when you field a new team in a sport.
On to college sports. It's like you were very prophetic last week on Sports Chat.
Well, I was a big Kendall fan going into the hiring process, and that's who they ended up getting. I was very satisfied with it. I didn't care anything that much about Michael White. He may be a good coach, maybe a great coach someday, but you don't really know yet. He's only been a coach for 3 years. I like Tyndall's record. He's 9 years as a head coach, the 200 wins. All the recruits did leave. That's not a big surprise with the coaching change. All the recruits left when Bruce Pearl signed. All the recruits left when Conzo Martin was hired. It just happens. He's going to be talking to one of them, Philip Kofer, tomorrow. Kofer, top 130-ish, 140 kid. He's 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", about 200, 210 pounds. His father, Mike Cover, played football for Tennessee back in the early 80s.
So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, hopefully it helps some. I mean, players in college basketball tend to really rely heavily on committing to a coach instead of a school. I mean, football players are usually more prone to stick around. But we'll see if he can bring back Kofor. It's already propped up quite a number of prospects. I've seen quite a few articles about it from some national sports writers saying that Tennessee probably has a line on some really good recruits. It may be that Tyndall comes in here and signs a better recruiting class than Conzo had already.
And he's known as a recruiter.
He recruited heavily for LSU and a couple others in Middle Tennessee. Had some very good recruiting classes in both places. He just wins basketball games. That's what I like about him. I like somebody with a bit of a track record. He's been to the NCAA tournament a couple of times. The 99th player in the country, according to Scout, top 100 guy. He's a 4-star power forward. His name's Tarico. He's 6'9", 210 pounds. Just a shot blocking machine from what I've read about him. He's just announced that he decommitted from Ohio, got his release from his letter of intent. He announced today that he was going to visit Tennessee in the next couple of weeks, maybe even within the next week. His father said they were really excited. He said Coach Tyndall called and talked about Kenneth Fareed, who had played for Tyndall at Morehead State. Kenneth Fareed was an unranked 6'9" guy out of New Jersey. Nobody else really wanted. He signed with Morehead, and 4 years later, after Tyndall's coaching, I believe he may have finished as the leading rebounder in NCAA history or something ridiculous. Maybe Ohio Valley Conference, but he was a rebounding machine. He got drafted in the first round of the NBA. He averaged 14 points and 10 rebounds a game, basically for Denver this year. And his father, Owen's father, said that Tyndall said Owens reminded him of Fareed and that he thought he could, turn him into an NBA player. So they're very interested in coming down.
I mean, that's the dream. That's almost as good of a sporting gig as you can get. You can go in the first round of the NBA draft.
You're guaranteed $870,000 for 4 years minimum. At that point, minimum. And just by getting into the NBA at all. Now, if you're a lottery pick, you're guaranteed a lot more than that. But the lottery, I think, is the first 14, 15 teams now. But even a first rounder, you're going to get signed to a contract usually, and it's guaranteed at $870,000 the league minimum pay. So that's exciting. Some of his other recruits, he's probably going to take. There's a couple of guys from Houston that are transferring, possibly graduate transfers. If they're graduate transfers, they'll get to play this year. If they're regular transfers, they'll have to wait till next year. I believe that they were the Houston's 2 leading scorers. Are talking about coming to Tennessee. Purdue lost their starting point guard. He's transferring this year. He averaged about 12, 15 points a game. He's an explosive scorer. Really can get to the basket, get up and down the court. He's leaving Purdue. Purdue plays the same style Conzo Martin played, but very slow, methodical. And he wants to get out. He's visiting Tennessee maybe today. He would have to sit out a year. Still, that's a high-level point guard that's played 2 years in the Big Ten as a starter.
Let's be honest, the Big Ten is the basketball conference to me.
Yeah, the Big Ten and pretty much the ACC and Big 12, the American Conference, which used to be the big. The SEC's down the pecking order somewhat, even though they had 2 teams in the Final Four. Some of the bad teams of the SEC are just really bad. But it's just a bunch of guys that can play ball. I mean, there's a shooting guard from Middle Tennessee. His name's Andrew Fleming. He's a 2015 recruit, so he'll be going into his senior year of high school. He's the number 3, number 4 rated player in Tennessee. From what I can tell, Tennessee hadn't really spoken to him or had under Conzo Martin wasn't really recruiting him that hard. Billy Donovan had already offered him a scholarship. Memphis had offered him a scholarship. Several other big programs already offered him scholarships. You see a guy getting offers like that, Billy Donovan doesn't take projects.
Right. And
this guy's supposed to be a deadly shooter. I don't know why Martin wasn't offering, but he announced yesterday that he had been contacted by Tennessee, and he was pretty happy about that. So he's an in-state kid. He's from Middle Tennessee, too. Originally, he is from Florida. That's might be something to overcome, especially with Donovan being the factor. But he's originally, or he is from Middle Tennessee now. That Memphis, it's hard to pull players out of.
Right.
I mean, no matter who our coach is, players seem to have two mindsets. They're either going to go to Memphis or they're going to go anywhere but Tennessee when they come out of Memphis. That's just the way it worked for, I don't know why, for years. In that city, there's a mentality that you're very anti-Tennessee. That's why you see that, Elliott Williams goes to Duke, and some of these guys go to North Carolina or they go to Kentucky. And it's, like I say, that or they go to Memphis. It's Memphis or anywhere but Memphis as a general rule. So I still believe Stokes would have went to Memphis probably if they'd had a scholarship open. We just got lucky and they didn't.
And of course, his eligibility status was that weird one too.
Oh yeah, he transferred high schools and wasn't allowed to play. Because he wasn't allowed to play, he just graduated early and enrolled at Tennessee early, which is why nobody had scholarships. It was the middle of the season. But as I said, there's good news on the recruiting front. I think that he'll probably try to sign 2 or maybe 3 graduate transfers. And that's guys that are coming in, they're going to be seniors next year, so you're only going to have that scholarship taken up for a year. So that way 3 more scholarships will free next year plus.
And you get 3 really quality
Josh
players.
Richards. Maybe only 2. He's probably going to sign a JUCO player or 2. That'll take that scholarship for a couple of years. And hopefully, I can't imagine they won't be because he's did pretty well with JUCO players before at Southern Miss and in Moorhead, but especially Southern Miss. He recruited a lot of JUCOs, won 27 and 29 games, had the 2 best seasons in school history with them. They only take a scholarship up for a couple of years, and I would imagine they're going to be better than Conzo Martin's JUCO players.
Oh yeah.
Edwards, you're probably saying who are the JUCO players? They never play. Conzo Martin's the most baffling JUCO recruiter I've ever saw in my life. And Pops Najee averaged 2 points and 2 rebounds a game in junior college. Why in the world you thought that could possibly transfer over to the SEC, I'll never know. Last I was looking, they're looking at a JUCO guy who averages something like 26 points a game, which is a good number for anybody. He obviously can score. It's exciting. It seems like there's more recruiting news in the last 2 weeks than there has been in the last 6 months. Because I think Martin had already mailed it in. The 2015 prospects were really far behind on them even before Martin left because it looked like he wasn't recruited. Nobody in the rivals top 150 in basketball had Tennessee listed as their number 1 choice coming out of high school. And that's ridiculous because I want to say 12 or 13 players were from the Southeast. Maybe 14 players on the list are from Tennessee, Georgia, or Florida.
And we have fantastic facilities.
Oh yeah, Tennessee's facilities are second to none. Tyndall's said he thinks he can sell this pretty easily. So some of those national articles that came out today, they think that they're going to be able to sell, that Tyndall's going to be able to sell that. People say that one of the coach who asked not to be named in the article I was reading said that Tyndall, well, your team's going to work harder than it's ever worked before. It's going to be a rebounding, and that Tennessee rebound that impressed me. That's Tyndall's style. They crash the offensive glass, they crash the glass, they get rebounds, they play defense, they're going to press, they're going to do its own defense, probably a matchup zone. It'll look sort of like a man-to-man and zone hybrid, but his team forces a lot of turnovers. It's finished in the top 30, top 35 in the nation 3 or 4 years in a row in forcing turnovers. Martin's style is completely different than that. Martin's style is to lay back on defense, not get in the lane, not try to force turnovers, and try to make you take a bad shot. And that's the Purdue style, which I'm not a terribly big fan of because, frankly, Gene Cady coached for 25 years and had some spectacular players.
Oh, he had talent.
Like Glenn Big Dog Ross averaged 32, 34 points a game, but he could never even get them to the Final Four. I mean, he would load up the roster with talent. So I don't think that's a system we really want to emulate, and I'll be glad now that we're not doing that anymore. Tyndall seems to more have his own system. He compared his offense to Louisville's, and I look his defense to maybe UCLA a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly who, but I think that that he's going to win a lot of games here, and I think fans will be warming up to him. Conzo Martin never cared much about embracing the fans, and it's got to go both ways. The fans aren't going to like you if you act like you don't like them.
Right, and that's where Pearl mastered early on. Is he was the fans' coach, and that's why years later we were clamoring to have him back.
Well, I mean, you even see that here on the local level. Look up at the high school. Look at the difference. I mean, nothing against Coach Wells. He was just of a different mindset and a different era of coaching. He's more of an old school guy, and he's not a big rah-rah, go community kind of guy. And the coaches, Coach Price, and he's a younger guy. Matt and Justin are younger guys, and their staff are younger. They're out in the community, and they embrace the community, you know, and court the community, I should say. I mean, it's not that Coach Wells was, you know, not embracing the community. It's just they court it more than Coach Wells. They sell the program better than Coach
Right,
Wells.
and I'll tell you what, Gary Terry down in Anderson County, the athletic director, he's the best athletic director that school's ever had because he does the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen a lot of the stuff he's done that people see around here, and I've seen it in a couple of the Knoxville area schools. Bearden and West have both done. Of course, it was the same coach that did it in both places, and they just really try to make it a community event.
Well, in the college level, whatever, you can afford to be a grumpy coach and not do the rah-rah stuff if you're winning championships. People don't care. But if you're not winning championships and you're going to the NIT and you're still grumpy and uncooperative, people are not going to like you. And that's what Martin ran into. Maybe he'll be happier at Cal. They have almost no expectations in Cal. Tennessee went out there and played a football game against them a couple of years ago, and Cal was ranked in the top 10 in the country. And the biggest story on campus that week was they were a bunch of hippies sitting in a tree trying to keep it from getting cut down for a stadium expansion.
I'm glad I don't live in California.
You know, with that 12.5% state income tax, Coach Martin probably better have gotten a significant $500,000-$600,000 raise to actually be making what he was going to be making at Tennessee.
That's true.
And between that and cost of living being really exceptionally high in the San Francisco Bay Area, I believe it's 183% of the cost of living in Knoxville. So essentially your dollar buys half what it did in Knoxville living out there.
A little bit different from my math, but you know, I'll agree with that.
Well, you know,
My math's kind of terrible.
your math was wrong.
You know. Well, fans, that about wraps it up for the weekend of sports.
Come down to Papa John's,
Get you some pizza.
cookie.
You know, if you need a loan, short on cash, go see the folks at Covington Credit. They've been nice enough to support us with some extra seating in here, and yeah, good folks and good neighbors. Fans, we're out of here. We'll see you next week.